So the Super Bowl just happened, and something that you'll notice every year, whether you watch football or not, is the Super Bowl logo. It's all over the promotional materials, the broadcast, and basically everything involving the game. But some logos are better than others, and I wanted to see how the logo has changed over the years. So today, I'm going to go over the different eras of Super Bowl logos, and I'm going to rank every single one of the logos in a tier list. Let's go. Starting off, we have what I'm going to call the figuring it out era. Now, those are the first 3 Super Bowls in the late 60s, and they really didn't know what they were doing at first, as you can tell by the logos. It wasn't even called the Super Bowl in the first game. Starting with the first game, that logo is about as simple as it gets. It just says, First World Championship Game, AFL versus NFL. And, to be fair, that's what it was. And, they didn't come up with a creative logo. Hey, let's just put black text and say what it is. I feel like I should put it in D tier, but honestly, it's so nostalgic. If you see this on a shirt or something, it's like, heck yeah. I'm going to put it in C tier just because how nostalgic it is. Now for Super Bowl II, since this is the second go around, they don't have the same excuse as the first one. This is just a really boring logo. It's just Super Bowl II in a red bubble font. Which, hey, for your first try, that's cool. It's just it's really boring. I'm going to put it in D tier. And now with Super Bowl III, it's also boring. And again, this is why it's called the figuring it out era. It's just these superimposed stars are just not working for me, and I feel like there's too many of them. I'm also going to put this in D tier. So the next era is what I'm going to call the pick a font era. I think they're getting a better idea of how to make the logo different every year, but it's mostly just changing fonts. I mean, there are a few exceptions, but it is mostly just that. And some are more creative than the others, but it's clear that they're still evolving. Starting off with Super Bowl IV. So this is the first logo that I guess has any sort of three-dimensional element, but I really feel like they can do better. It took place in New Orleans. I think that's why it's gold, but I just feel like it can do better. So I'm going to put this in D tier. Super Bowl V. I do like the red, white, and blue. This is 1970. It's very of that time. This is also very 2D. And I just feel like it's not working for me as much. It's very clear this is in the early stages of Super Bowl. So this is D tier as well. Super Bowl VI. Now it really looks like they stepped it up a bit with creativity. This game, once again, was in New Orleans. And that really shows, you look at the bottom half of their font, it kind of has that kind of French kind of feel. I think it looks really cool. It's not my favorite logos. That's why I'm going to put it in C. So next is Super Bowl VII. And I actually really like this logo. It's very 70s, and I think this really uses the 3D well. I think it's cheesy, but cheesy in a good way. I really think they really used, it's really saturated red, really saturated blue, and it shouldn't work together, but it does. So I'm actually going to put this in B tier. Next is Super Bowl VIII, and I feel like this one really didn't look like they were trying very much. I mean, as I said, it's just they're picking a new font. And it's just this one really wasn't very creative. It's going in D tier. Super Bowl IX, I really like this logo. It's different. Now, once again, this one was in New Orleans. And I think it shows in the logo. It really has just that kind of feel. Something about the X and IX for some reason reminds me of brass instruments. I can't really say why, but it almost has that kind of jazzy but elegant feel. And I do like how the colors pop. So I'm going to put this in B tier. Super Bowl X, really similar to the last one a little bit. Different font, but also elegant. Now, I've been kind of harshing on plain logos, but something about this one is elegant. It actually looks really good. And I'm going to put this in C tier. Now moving on to Super Bowl XI, I think it's just okay. It is more detailed than the last logo. It at least has a red outline, but it's just fine. I think this one is also going in C tier. So moving on to the next era, and I'm going to call this the getting creative era. Now they're doing more than just changing the font. They're making whole new designs that really set each logo apart. Well, for the most part. Starting with Super Bowl XII, I really like this logo. This was a pretty innovative logo because it really used 3D more than any other logo had. If you look at the XII there, it's all 3D. I just think my big sticking point here is I just don't like the colors. I think yellow and this purple is not a great match. Color-wise, it's not working as well for me, but I really do commend this logo for how different it was, so I'm going to put it in B tier. So moving on to Super Bowl 13, I really like this logo. I think it's iconic. When I think of Super Bowls from the 70s, for some reason, this logo comes to mind. I think it's iconic, and it is pretty simple. It's just basically red and blue dots, but it's not as complex as some of the other ones we're going to see, so it's not quite S tier for me. I'm putting it in A tier. Super Bowl 14, I like this logo a lot. This took place in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl, and it really does have that, I don't know, almost 50s style to it that I feel like I associate Pasadena with. And I like the red. I like the colors overall. I really do like it. I'm also going to put this one at A tier for me. Okay, and now Super Bowl 15. And how do you go from 3 really creative logos back down to just picking a font? And it seems to be like these New Orleans ones, I feel like, where they go with this like gold or yellow or brown, and they just like don't try very hard, probably pick like a really like a Times New Roman-y font, and they call it a day. It's just, I feel like at this point the Super Bowl logos are past this, and I think it needs to be more creative, and for that reason I'll put it in D tier. And the same thing goes for Super Bowl 16. This one is very similar. It's just a plain logo. There isn't anything fancy going on. I mean, it looks kind of nice, but it's just not very creative. I'm also going to put this one in D tier. The next era is what I call the artistic era. Now it feels like they're really cooking. For all of these, they definitely went really retro with these, and most of them with an Art Deco theme, which I think is so 80s. I think when I look at these, I just think the 80s. Absolutely. Starting off with Super Bowl 17, I love this logo. I think it is great. It very pops with the red and blue. And just like I pointed out with Super Bowl 14, this one also took place in Pasadena. So it really does have that really good color scheme too, and a very Art Deco feel. I like it a lot. I'm gonna put it in S tier. I really like this logo a lot, and I think it's one of the better ones. Moving on to Super Bowl 18. Now I like this one a lot too. I really love just the animated feel it has with the banner around it. I've always liked this logo a lot. It makes it feel very grand. I think because it's so cartoony, it makes it harder for me to take it seriously, but I really like it. I'm gonna put this in A tier. Moving on to Super Bowl 19. This one is very Art Deco. I think the most Art Deco of the bunch. I'm not that big a fan of the muted color scheme as much, but I really like the design a lot. I'm gonna put this in B tier. Moving on to Super Bowl 20. I also like this logo. I don't think it does enough, especially for the 20th anniversary. I don't think it does enough to really stand out. I mean, it's cool, but it seems like kind of a rehash. It really is just, you have the Super Bowl and a circular logo with the XX just kind of popping out. I wish they had kind of done a little more here. I'm gonna put this in B tier. And then finally we have Super Bowl 21, which I love this logo. This is absolutely iconic. When I think about Super Bowl logos, I think about that, like specifically the rose design they have here. I love that it's not perfect. It's very jagged, and I think it's really cool. I feel very nostalgic when I see this logo, and I like it a lot. I'm gonna put it in S tier. The next era is the red and blue era. I feel like they took a step back here creatively, but most of these logos are still really clean and elegant, and they really do have a singular theme. Starting with Super Bowl 22, I think this logo is just okay. It kind of has a diamond, which I never really understood. I'll be honest, it seems like more of a baseball thing to have a diamond, but like, I thought this logo was okay. I'm gonna put this in B tier. Now, Super Bowl 23, I like this logo a lot. I love the triangles. It's sharp, it's really fun. I think it's really cool. I'm gonna put this in A tier. Super Bowl 24, again, this one took place in New Orleans, so it does have a little more of a regal feel. I like the scrolls. I really do like those. I like they did a little something different with the font there for the XXIV. I think it's pretty solid. I'm gonna put it in B tier. And now Super Bowl 25. I'm not really that big of a fan of this logo. Especially the edges, I think it's too complicated. I don't understand the whole shield shape. It's just not really working for me. I'm gonna put this in C tier. And now Super Bowl 26. I always thought this logo was really interesting. It really pops out at you. You know, it's sort of funny thinking about it. until we get to the era where they have the Lombardi Trophy in the logo, I don't think there's a lot of logos that have a football in it. I think this logo is pretty cool. It's very 90s. I'm going to put this in A tier. Moving on to the next era, and I'm going to call this the city-themed era. These are the least subtle designs to date, but honestly they're probably the most iconic. They all have specific homages to the city where they're held, and I think that makes each logo pretty cool. Starting with Super Bowl 27. I love this logo. I love the color scheme. I love the incorporation of the roses because, this game also took place in Pasadena at the Rose Bowl. I really love this logo. I think it's iconic, and I really think it's amazing, even though it is not subtle at all. It is really in your face and very, very colorful. I'm definitely going to put this in S tier. Super Bowl 28. Now, looking at the peach, you'd probably know that this game took place in Atlanta, and it did. It really took very much the similar theme of Super Bowl 27's thing with the roses and just did it with peaches in Atlanta, and I do like that. And again, these logos are pretty gaudy. They're really in your face, but I think it is really cool. I'm going to put this in A tier. Super Bowl 29. This one, for the Super Bowl in Miami, they went a little more abstract with it, just had sunshine, had use of triangles. From a design standpoint, from a graphic design standpoint, it's really clean. They really use the triangles here really well. And I really just love that there's the big triangle at the bottom and there's a bunch of little triangles on top. I think it's really cool and really clean. I'm also putting this in A tier. And then next we have Super Bowl 30. Now, I love this logo, but I will admit it does have problems. It is really, really loud. It almost hurts your eyes to look at sometimes. Especially with how yellow the X's are, and then the red and the blue from the shapes next to it. It is a lot. I do think it's really cool. This game was in Arizona, by the way, which kind of explains the pattern they have going on. But I like it, but since it does kind of hurt my eyes, I'm going to put it in B. Super Bowl 31. I just feel like, they could have done a little better here. There's something about, with the New Orleans theme, I like the confetti, the Mardi Gras colors. It looks a little bit cheap to me. I'm going to put this in C tier. Moving on to Super Bowl 32. I like this logo a lot. This one took place in San Diego, hence the nautical theme. It does have where there's words surrounding the logo, which is something that'll be definitely prominent in the next era. I just think it is really cool. It is really colorful. Kind of like the Super Bowl 30. I think there are a lot of colors, kind of distract from it, but I think it is really cool. I'm going to put this in A tier. Then Super Bowl 33. This was in Miami. It's Art Deco. It's very Miami Art Deco. I think that really works. But yeah, I'm not as big of a fan of the colors here. I really do think it is really creative. Honestly, for creativity alone and just what it manages to do here, I think it's super clean. I'm going to put it in B tier. Next up is what I'm calling the Shield era. It's not that different from the previous era, and I am mostly naming it after this first logo here, but there are some differences. They tend to have more 3D elements than the previous era, and a lot of them are wrapped in a circle of text, as you can see here. Starting with Super Bowl 34, the shield itself. This one has a lot of 3D elements to it. I really like that you can really see the shadows in the lettering. For me, I always thought this logo was kind of boring. I've appreciated it more over time, but it doesn't do that much for me. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Super Bowl 35. I really like this logo. This has more of a regal feel to it. Now you would think it's regal, it'd be taking place in New Orleans, but that's not true. This was in Tampa. I just really like the feel of this logo. I like the colors. I like the whole design of it. I'm actually gonna put this as S tier. This is actually quietly one of my favorites. Next we have Super Bowl 36. Now this is a famous one. This is the America-themed Super Bowl logo of the game that took place just after 9/11. And it really shows in the logo. It's obviously very patriotic. I do like how it's kind of at a slant and it's very 3D. I think this is a really cool logo. Super Bowl 36 originally had this logo. They changed it from this logo to make it match a more patriotic theme. And honestly, I like the logo that they chose a lot better than the original one. I'm gonna put this in A tier. Moving on to Super Bowl 37. This one was in San Diego, again, because it's nautical. What I will say is this one looks a little more cartoony than the others. I really like kind of the waves they have on the bottom. I do think it's really cool. I feel like when the Super Bowl numbers are really long, it's really hard to get a clean logo, but I think this one does a pretty good job, even if it is a little loud. A tier. Super Bowl 38. This one was in Houston, hence the space theme. I think this logo is really clean. It doesn't quite have as many 3D elements as the other logos. It's pretty 2D. It's pretty simple, pretty subtle, even though it does have a lot of bright colors. I'm gonna put this in B tier. Now, Super Bowl 39. This one was in Jacksonville. It has that one bridge they have there with the river underneath making out the Super Bowl letters. I think this logo is pretty cool. It was always just kind of missing something for me. I like the ocean theme, but it's like, I think the light blue of the XXXIX just gets kind of washed out. I think it's cool, but not one of my favorites. I'm going to put this in C tier. Now we've reached the era that I'm calling the 2-star era. I call it this because each logo incorporates a red star and a blue star. And what I do like is they actually incorporate these in a pretty subtle ways. Starting with Super Bowl 40. I like this one. I like that the red and blue pop. It has a very industrial feel, which is fitting because this is in Detroit. I think it's cool, but not necessarily one of my favorites. I think there are better logos. I really do like how they use their colors here. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Next we have Super Bowl 41. It's sort of funny. A lot of these logos, at least 3 of them, kind of made a certain part of the football field their theme. So this one's theme is the pylon, which, interesting. I do like how they have that little flash of light here. I think that's really cool. I think this is a clean logo, but something about it just isn't really working for me. I'm gonna put it in C tier. Super Bowl 42. I like this logo a lot because it does have that Arizona shape. This is really the only one of this era that actually pays any specific homage to the place where the game is being played. And so I really like that. I think it's really clean. I do like that like almost baby blue that's popping out. I think it's really cool. It's a little loud, but I really do like that. A tier. And then here we have Super Bowl 43. This is actually one of my favorite logos. I love the concentration on blue, but then the use of the green from the field. This really has the hash marks as their theme, but I just think that their use of colors is really good here. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I'm biased to logos that incorporate green. I don't know. I really like this logo. I'm gonna put this in S tier. And then here we have Super Bowl 44. Their chosen theme was the goalpost. I actually think of the 5 logos in this era, they're the one that really uses the red and blue star the least. It gets washed out by all this orange. It is so much orange. Very orange. I think it's cool. I do like how it has kind of turns a corner. I think that's kind of neat. Honestly, I think 44's logo isn't that different from Super Bowl 41's logo. I think this is the improved version of Super Bowl 41's logo. And I actually like this one. But I'm going to put this in B tier. And now, we've reached the Chrome era. Oh boy. A lot of people see this as the death of Super Bowl logo design. And they're kinda right. Standardizing the logo is certainly no fun, and the colorless chrome just leaves me cold. There's no way they could have introduced this first logo as a one and done. It's so lacking in creativity that it only makes sense as a set. The one bright spot here is the 3D rendering of the stadium behind the Lombardi Trophy. I think that's genuinely cool, even if these logos on the whole mostly suck. Starting with the one that started it all, Super Bowl 45. It's just AT&T Stadium behind the Lombardi Trophy. It's a lame. The whole thing was to look futuristic, but it's a lame. D tier. Super Bowl 46. Okay, the same thing I just said, but it's Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. They really didn't change anything. D tier. Super Bowl 47. The same thing, it's just the Superdome. It's lame. D tier. Super Bowl 48? A little different. It is MetLife Stadium in the Meadowlands, but they do have the New York skyline, which I genuinely think is cool. It helps because the 48 in Roman numerals is so long, it makes sense to have something fill out the margins there. So I think that's cool. I'm going to give that a C tier. Super Bowl 49, it's basically reverting back to what it was, but they did add some rocks because it's Phoenix. That's kind of cool. It's still D tier. Now Super Bowl 50. The Golden Super Bowl, the only one to use Arabic numerals, which yes, that's what those are called. I love that it has the 50 in gold, but better yet, I love that you can see the San Francisco skyline as a shadow on the 50. I think it's really clean. I think it's really cool. Yeah, it still has those chrome elements, but I think this is actually a solid logo. A tier. Next up is the color chrome era. Super Bowl 50 was a bridge between the chrome era and this era. This era really is just the next evolution of the chrome era, except they got rid of the stadiums behind Lombardi and just added a color for the Super Bowl text to sit in. The pop of color is nice, but these are mostly pretty boring. Super Bowl 51, I'll be honest, when I see the logo Super Bowl 51, I just think of that actual game, which is one of the greatest Super Bowl games ever, but I can't have that as a bias here. What I do love is the accents. The red pops, that is clear, but the accents, they have accents around the LI and on the back of the Lombardi trophy. I think it's really clean, if simple. It really is clean and simple. I'm gonna put this in B tier. Next we have Super Bowl 52. It's pretty similar to the last one, except, and here's the big thing they changed. If you look closely, they changed the shape of the Lombardi trophy. I don't like the angle that it's at now. It just, like, the football looks different. I don't like it as much. While I do like those light blue accents, it's not the same as the last one, even though they're really similar. I'm putting this C tier. Super Bowl 48. This is just about almost the exact same as the last one, except they just made the blue a little darker and they added a letter. Since they could have made it different but didn't, I'm gonna put this in D tier. Super Bowl 54. I like that they kind of changed this a little bit. It's gold. This was in Miami, so you have that teal color. Plus, I'm getting a little bit of an Art Deco feel. I like the gold accents. It's cool that they have an accent on the letters that's different from the main color. I want to speculate that the gold is because this was also the 100th anniversary of the NFL, but I'm not sure about that. I like this logo. I don't like it quite as much as Super Bowl 51, but I think it is solid. I like they changed it up. I'm putting this in C tier. And now Super Bowl 55. This one is a cool logo. I like that the colors pop a lot. You got that bright orange and then the blue accents, kind of electric blue accents. Something that always bothered me about this logo is that you zoom into the LV. It just looks kind of dirty. It's not smooth. It's just kind of rough and rugged. And I never quite understood why they did that. It might be weird to say, but it takes me out of it. I don't know. I mean, it's fine. It's just not one of my favorites. It's in C tier. Finally, we have our current era, which I'm calling the Creative Chrome era. This era feels like both a step toward the past and a step toward the future at the same time. I love that the designs are city specific and that they're colorful. So colorful, in fact, they started this whole color theory conspiracy, where the NFL supposedly knows what teams are going to be playing in the Super Bowl and then somehow reveals them in the logo colors. It only kind of makes sense. Anyway, I think these logos do a great job of keeping that Lombardi trophy constant, while also having this animated feel that once again feels creative and something that like the past 10 years of Super Bowl logos had been missing. Super Bowl 56. I love this logo. This was the first one where we saw this one and we're like, hey, Super Bowl logos can be creative again. I think this one is really cool. Like, it looks animated, especially that Super Bowl script at the bottom. I like that the letters are transparent and they have the palm trees because it's in LA. I really like this one. I think the colors are simple and I think it's really clean. I'm gonna put this in S tier. Next we have Super Bowl 57. I like that there's a lot of color. I don't like it as much as I probably should. I really do like the amount of color here. I'm not as big of a fan of the design as the last one, like inside. I do like they have the rock formations for Arizona. I'm just not as big of a fan of the main color. So I'm gonna put this in B tier. Next we have Super Bowl 48. I think this one is really clean. I like that they went with an overall purple theme with some landmarks from Las Vegas drawn on the letters. I really like that. It looks more animated. I also like that they curved the letters. Well, I mean, they basically had to because it's so long. But overall, I really like this one. A tier. Now, here we have the one for the most recent Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59. This one was pretty wild. From what I remember correctly, it was like a local artist, and the design pays tribute to indigenous communities in the New Orleans area, I think. Either way, it's really cool. It does really have that big pop of color. I would almost say too much color, because that neon really pops out at you. Overall, I like it. I'm going to put it in B tier. And now, finally, we have the one for the next Super Bowl that hasn't happened yet. Super Bowl 60. And boy, does this one have color. I know I said the last one may have had a little too much color, but this one, every color in the rainbow. I think they really saw the whole Super Bowl color theory. I think the NFL saw the color theory conspiracy and then was like, throw them off the trail. I really think that's what happened here because they included like 8 colors. I really like that they have the San Francisco skyline along with the Golden Gate Bridge and the redwoods and everything. I think that's really cool. I just don't know if all this color is necessary here. And unlike the other logos in this era, it's also flat. I don't love it. C tier. So here's our complete tier list. Do you agree with my picks? What's your favorite Super Bowl logo? Please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.